Right, Jeff, I've just arrived.
One's arrived.
Not even got a cup of tea yet, it's that urgent. And he said to me, what do you want to know about the bad news? So I said,
Well,
yeah,
the crank,
tell me the bad news.
The crank that you bought.
Oh yes, this is for the Mark II.
Yeah, I pulled it apart.
Yes. That I paid £100 for.
And it's a very early one because the bearing sizes are different.
Okay.
So if you want...
well, it's for a Mark II, isn't it?
This isn't a Mark II crank.
It's going into a Mark II crank. It's going into a Mark II engine.
Yeah.
Well, no, tell a lie. It's going into the XZ1 turbo engine.
You can't interchange any of the bits on it.
Well, all I want to change, all I want is one cam rod.
Yeah, but you can't fit the con rod because it's.
I was told they're all the same.
No, they're not.
That's not good, is it? Okay,
no,
well,
they're very early. I was a bit gobsmacked because I thought that they were for as we can see here.
It was marketed as a 78.
That's off the Mark II.
Yeah.
And they're 41.
So the big ends are different.
They're 2 mm bigger in diameter.
For F's sake.
And they measure 31.
Yeah, that's 31, yeah.
And they measure 29.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Apart from that, is it a good crank? Is it a decent crank?
Looking at it all, it's all the cranks in good fettle, but the only thing you end up with is a 15 tooth.
Well, I'll just have to get on the crank at a later crank, won't I?
Yeah, so we can't interchange any of the bits.
Okay, it's okay.
So basically, it's either completely used all that, or well, we're back to the drawing table.
Well, at least we can put this back together and I know it's a decent crank, whether we use it on this or not.
Yeah, there was some gammy oil in it here and there, and I mean.
Well, have you spoken to your brother yet, your Les, about this?
This?
Yes.
No, I've only just done this,
okay.
so I've not spoken to him.
Okay, well, we'll see what he says.
Well,
because he's got the other crank that just requires. Yeah. Well, hang on. Where's the other two bits? So you know that's. So you tell me which one is the one to go for.
Well, if you're going to run one, I suppose the ones with the bigger. To be honest, it doesn't really for what.
Well, don't forget.
Unless you're running,
unless
you're running nitrous oxide and serious amounts of power.
But isn't there an issue with the cam chain?
Yeah, what you've got to do with that is run the 15 tooth, the 30 tooth cam sprockets, whereas the Mark II, I'll have a 32.
All right. Well, we may or may not have that.
So you'll have to be very careful.
Well,
on that.
Let that lie for the time being. We can build it back up again as a good crank to use on something else.
That could be built up.
Right, we'll build it up as is.
And then if
needed, I'll go and get another crank. We'll have another go at it. I'll make sure it's a later model.
Yeah.
Maybe a J or something. I don't know. All right. Okay. Well, that's the bad news, but not that bad.
Well, a Z1000J.
So is that could be different as well?
No, the rods are different on them. As I was showing you, they've got that extra thick web on the Mark II, whereas the J ones, which there was one there,
the engine
it's just sort of flat.
But the engine isn't a Mark II. The engine's
you see, and that obviously, if you were in the big picture of things, it probably wouldn't make much difference if you had two at the same, counteracting it in balance. But
okay, well, what we'll do is
it's nice to build it all with the same.
Build that up with as it was, make it a good crank, and whether we use it or not, we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, I need still to get that finished, that crank built up. So I need to get another crank that you can take apart and hopefully find a decent conrod for it. So that's from what? That's from a Zed.
That's a Mark II.
A Mark II. So a Mark II or an ST.
Yeah. So I believe is an ST the same.
I believe so, but I need to double check with your.
This is where when you're getting stuff on eBay, it can be. If you went to your local breakers and you just went along, counted it, looked at it, measured it.
But you can't.
You know, but them days have gone.
Yes. All right. Well, we shall try again.
The electronic.
In the meantime, let's just get that built up as a decent crank. And what engine it goes in, we don't know yet. But at least I'll have a decent crank. Right. So if you forget about that for a second, put shaft to one side.
I'll just what it wants is all checking and cleaning and. You could spend a few hours cleaning it all up.
Well, we'll do that. Well, you'll do that, and we'll end up with a decent crank. Okay, so that's good. Well, not good, but at least I know about that now. Going back, but that's all the Mark II stuff, really. That's all the next project.
Well, is that Z1R, did you say?
No. It was told to me as a Z1000 A1 or A2.
It could, yeah. It could. You see, I'm not. All I know is the very early Kawasaki's had the slightly smaller bearings.
All right. Okay.
Funnily enough, the bore size of the mains, the OD of the mains, all remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
All them in. You can fit. You can interchange the cranks, but some crank parts won't interchange.
Okay, well, you live and learn. You live and learn. So that's the Mark II project, which I'm not really going to start yet, but I do want to try and get the parts required to build the engine up, because your Les is my case is sitting there in the way, so I want to get him moving on that. So that's why we're doing this, but that will be a slight delay. Right, Jeff, it's now been a week since I was last here, and we were talking about the crankshaft that I bought for my Mark II project. I wanted it for one conrod, as I remember, and it turned out it wasn't as described. It was an earlier crankshaft, so the the conrods are different on that one than on the one I want, which meant that crank is not good to me. So down there I see you've got not one, not two, but three green boxes full of crank parts. So which one's which there? Which one's mine?
That one's the one you bought.
That's the one I bought.
That's got the smaller big ends in it.
Yes. Okay,
the 29mm crank pins.
Yes, that's right. And then next to it is...
This one is...
Cranks are us.
This is the one that is the Mark II.
Right, this is one off the turbo bike, and this is the one which had the bent conrod, which we're trying to rebuild.
No, it didn't have a bent conrod.
Oh, sorry, I thought one had a dodgy conrod.
Oh, it's got a pitted conrod.
All right, okay, damaged in some way. So that's the one I want a new conrod for, or a better conrod. That's for the Mark II.
I'm not sure which one.
Okay,
it is. I know which one it is.
All right.
Could be that one there.
We don't really care about the details.
But this is the Mark II crank, yeah.
Right, okay. So we didn't get very far with that, and then you've got another box down there. So what's that one all about? What's that one, Jeff? The one at the bottom there.
I think that's a GP's.
Oh, sorry.
That's one of mine,
okay.
I think.
Okay. So so this is the one I bought. That's no good, but I'm going to rebuild this as a standard crank, and maybe we'll use it another day. Yeah. That's still waiting for a decent conrod to turn up. Yeah. So if you put that away, off here, off the workbench. Oh, it's heavy, isn't it? Look at my neck.
Oh, they're heavy, yeah.
Very heavy.
I know it's one of these that's got...
Alright, anyway, it doesn't really matter.
It's one of them.
Okay, so if we put that away, ignore the fly for the time being. So if you put those bits back in the box, back in the box.
Back in the box.
Not get them all mixed up.
No, I know which bit.
Okay. Is that one?
That's for that, yeah.
That's for that.
That's actually might be the one that has the pit.
Okay.
Where it?
Some damage anyway.
No, it's only got it.
Okay, anyway.
It's one of them's got a pit on it.
We'll pop him back in the box. We'll put it back on the floor, out of harm's way. And then, you might notice that on your workbench here is another Zed crank in bits that you've pulled apart. But that's not yours, that's not mine. This is for a customer's. And it came out immaculate, because I've seen the bike, an immaculately restored Zed. Is it Z9 or Z1000? I can't remember now, but it's very nice.
I'm not sure the exact.
I think it's a Z9, but it is immaculate. But sadly, it seems that all that glitters isn't gold, because it turned out it might look nice on the outside, but on the inside, the engine was a real mess. So your Les has had the job of restoring that, and it's taken it all apart. That's the crank for it, which is quite badly worn, isn't it? Oh, it's not badly worn, but it's seen some days. It's seen some miles.
Whoever built it last time.
So it's been oh yes.
They've smacked hell out of. I don't know.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
They've smacked hell out of the
Oh
webs.
yeah, you can see there. It's absolutely bashed.
With a caveman club.
Yes.
With iron
bars and guns as well.
Bits nailed to it. Yes. I don't know.
It's had a hard life, hasn't it? Somebody's treated it quite badly. So you've taken it apart, checked all the bearings, checked all the.
There is. You can feel a tiny bit on some of the mains. The big ends are fine.
Yes.
They're very good, but the mains itself, a fraction, maybe a thou or two on some of them.
But it's usable.
The thing is, for what it's doing, it's perfect.
Yeah, nicely restored Z1s don't tend to get big miles on them.
No.
I think so. That'll be rebuilt now, cleaned up, rebuilt, and go back in that engine. But there's another crankshaft that we need to talk about that should be here by now, but isn't here yet.
It's not turned up.
No, but it'll be here probably today, a minute after I leave, no doubt. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. So I bought a second crankshaft, and this is supposed to be from a Mark II. So we'll have to see what condition it's in. And when it arrives, well, again, we'll strip it all down, check it out. We might use that crankshaft, if it's a good one, in the Mark II motor.
Try and keep it all
the same, as you said.
Keep it all the same.
Or if needed, if it's in a bad way, we can just take the best conrod we can find and use it in that other crankshaft there that's in bits. Then you've got to rebuild it, weld it. Of course, it'll be welded for strength because it's going to get a 400cc conversion in it. So yeah, that's what's happening with the Mark II. That's why the Mark II, we haven't seen it much yet, because we're still waiting for the parts to turn up. We have got, if you've seen the previous video we did, we have got the cases and the block and the various bits and bobs powder coated from Triple S, and very nicely up too. And we have got the clutch, we've got all the bottom end ready to go, we've got the gearbox and so on. So that's all waiting to go. But the thing that's holding us up is a crank. So as I say, there should be a new old one arriving today or Monday, and then we can hopefully make some progress. So that's what's happening with the Mark II so far. And that's it. Right, with that then, we'll move on and discuss something else. Anything else to talk about cranks while we're here?
Not really.
Well, apart from the crank I'm looking at right now behind the camera.
What I might as well do is, while I'm truing these up now, I've got a big block of sponge somewhere, so I have to put it on here.
Oh, and then you can bang it.
And then with my big Neolithic type copper hammer.
Yes.
Which
it works.
The technical hammer.
Yes.
Not a ball peen hammer.
No.
Some boneheads used on this previously.
Yes.
Well, not only that, they pressed it together, and all the tolerances on the big ends, there was like 20 thou plus.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, the oil will escape and not do what it's supposed to do.
They haven't got the shimming one right, which means it's got drift on it.
Yes.
And all that multiplied means you're losing valuable oil
pressure,
out your relief slots there to go to your pistons. So whoever done it last time, you know.
Yeah, just to go back a little bit then to explain, because sometimes I get confused with different engines. The oil pressure in a Z1 isn't that high because it's using roller bearing crank, but it still needs oil pressure, because that oil pressure does it go through, it starts off at the oil pump, does it go through the middle of the crank?
It's pumped into your mains through the crankcase.
Right.
And through your mains they put into your crank web.
Yes.
Where it'll go into that groove there, which goes into your big end. Right. So if you've got any float, especially on your big ends, if you've got any float there, which there was plenty on this,
that oil doesn't stay where it should be.
Well, the oil is going out everywhere.
Yeah. It's not going where it should go.
And it should be directed.
Hang on, let's have a look.
There's only one clearance on it there.
Yes.
The others are basically to hold oil.
Yes.
And that one, basically, the more oil you have in there, if you can get it to come out of there, or it goes onto your bore, which obviously
it's good.
It's good.
So how does the oil get to the top end then? How does it get to the small end?
Basically, it flings it up through there.
It just flings it?
It pumps it, so it's lubricating, and basically
shoots it up.
You want as much as you can coming out of there to go on your cylinder bores and onto your.
And it just sort of splashes itself around, yeah. Well, I see you got the holes there. Look for.
Yeah, so it
just basically
it fires it all over the inside of the piston to get.
Where it goes. Yeah.
So obviously, if it's not built to tolerance, you're going to be losing a lot of valuable
pressure. Yeah.
Pressure. Well, not so much pressure, but
oil.
Oil flow
not where it should go.
To go, yeah.
Okay. Right. So and by the way, what I'll do now is I'll turn the camera around and we can see what this thing should look like when it's all back together again. Right. Yeah. So I'll turn the camera around on the far side of the vice here, and there you've got one of your cranks, which is almost finished now. Have you got anything else to do with it, or?
I've just got to true these up, and then it wants welding.
Welding, yeah. I also noticed you've got the conrods polished.
Well, yeah, but they've gone a bit dull.
Yeah, they've been there so long.
They've been sat in the. But this hopefully, I think it's looking now it'll end up going in the spares bike.
Right. Okay.
Just take it. The rods have been done and are ready for 17mm gudgeon pins.
Right, which is the later. They're later Jupiter Z, are they? Jupiter Z?
No, they are Unitrack rods, but they've been bronze bushed to 17 to use them. Arias
pistons that you have
1260. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes, that's quite a. And obviously that crank's on your.
I've just got to. The thing is, like say, once I've trued it up, well, thing is with these, you can't say how long it's going to take, because you can hit it and then you can go on there, you can go the other way, then you can hit it again. It's just.
Obviously, you've got all your dial gauges ready to rock there to measure
once
the run out and so on. Okay, good. So that's the story with the Mark II crank. One step forward, two steps back at the moment, but no doubt in a week or two we'll have a crank back together again, and I can take down your letters and you can make us continue building that engine for the Mark II. Because don't forget, I want that done by my birthday, which is in January, and it's now August, so it's time's marching on. Mind you, that said, it's currently pouring down outside, so you wouldn't know it's summer, but never mind. Right, okay.
Spring shower.
Well,
summer shower.
Autumn's on its way, autumn's on its way. Right, okay. And that's that. Right, Jeff, here we are. I'm back again, another day, another crank. This video is all about cranks, I'm afraid. Yep. And what we've got there is a crank that, even you, yes, you can be a bit cranky at times.
Yeah. Before someone gets that in before.
By the way, cranky in German means ill, I think.
Does it?
Yes, yeah, cranky.
You know, they've hit a nail on the head there.
They certainly have for you. Yeah. Right, so anyway, what you've got there is another crank that you've now finished building up, and it's awaiting to be welded.
Well, it was finished last time.
Oh, okay.
It's just that
I've
got them trued up now.
Right.
I've had to dial it half a thou and whatever. The only snag is, if you weld them, I'm hoping it's got to be done, you know, and what it needs is you start in there,
mm-hmm.
and try and keep the weld
even.
If you try and start at the side and run
I'm
round,
sure Jeff the welder will.
You can run the risk of pulling it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
I'm sure I can do that for you. So that's a crank that's going to go in the spares bike.
That's a spares bike. It's all running true. Well, actually, tell a lie. It's about nearly a thou out on one of the taper ends, and it's actually out at the point that way. And I've had a bolt in there to oink it, and it was about 3 thou out. Bearings running true.
Yes.
Whether the actual taper's worn a little bit. This
possibly.
is the trouble with second-hand parts.
Oh, of course. I mean that crank's what, 40 years old, or even more than that. 45 years old.
All the parts are going to suffer some.
Yes. Some damage. Yeah. Some wear.
Minor wear.
Okay.
On the journals.
Okay. But you're happy with that? Just needs to be welded now at each end.
All we need to do is a 2-end journals welding,
and it's done.
If I had the gas and the TIG, I'd do it myself.
But you haven't, so I can take it down to Jeff if you want. Right, so
it's bloody heavy.
Well, you can help me carry it, and we'll put it in the back of my car. I'll take it to Jeff the welder. Might even film that. You never know. Right, so moving on then. Crank's done.
When I get yours, your two.
Yes. Oh yes. Don't forget about mine. We'll do it all in one go.
Yeah.
So now moving across there. Let me just get a bit closer, and we can continue. Right, that's better. So you've now got a web in your hand. Crank web, and that's one. Now this crank here, now just to be clear, that's the crank that came out of the Z900.
Is it Z9?
A beautiful bike. I've seen it. No, I'm not sure. It's a beautifully restored bike. Looks absolutely immaculate.
Apart from the bits.
But all that glitters isn't gold, because the engine's an absolute. You know, I won't say it's a dog, but it's not as good as it should be. So your list has got the job of stripping it all down and rebuilding it, good as new, and you got the job of rebuilding the crank. So what you've got in your hand there is one of the crank webs.
That's one of the existing webs, yeah.
Yeah, so just hold it still and I'll zoom in and we can see the damage that crank's got on it. Okay, I've zoomed in now, and hopefully if Jeff doesn't move it too much, we can see the damage on that crank web.
It's been smacked there. Is it still in zoom?
Yes, it is.
If I spin it, you can see it's been smacked there. Yeah. It's been hit there by something, and it's been hit there.
Now when you say smacked, you do mean someone's actually hit it with a hammer.
With a ball-peened hammer, probably, to
try and get the thing
it up, Either that or they got angry with it and just decided to beat the shit out of it. I don't
quite
know.
Possibly. So you decided that was not good enough to go back on the crank.
The taper there, that is absolutely shot at anyway.
Yeah, even from here I can see it's...
What I tried on the lathe this morning is I took a cut off it just to make sure it machined before I tried it on. That's why that's shiny.
Right, okay.
So it looked worse than that before I took a cut.
Okay.
Anyway,
now then, hang on, I'll just have to zoom out now. Right, I've zoomed out again. So that web, you've replaced it with another web, with another crank that you've now machined.
Well, Les provided one of them.
A better one, yes.
He said, "Oh, I've got one of them."
Right.
And
there's a supply.
And it's
so
on. Now. The only thing is, the one that's on could be later or whatever, or earlier. I'm not sure. It's got a Woodruff key.
Right, and that one doesn't have a Woodruff key. Yes.
Which it's been battered a bit over the years, but
it's better than that one.
It's it's, you see, with that being, it looks at some point the rotor's spun on that.
Yes,
and it's just completely
trashed it. Yeah,
yeah.
I can see it. So burn marks on it.
The one he brought me had hammer marks on it, but
yeah.
I've actually taken a 20 thou polish cut off the web.
Yes,
on each of them.
Yeah, it looks nice and shiny now, doesn't it? Yeah.
There is a tiny. I mean, you can hardly. There's nothing that you can see on it. You see, the thing is, I could have built that crank up with these.
Yes.
And then whoever gets it next will think, oh, no, not taking it. I want.
Yes.
You know.
Who did that? And they think you did it.
It all. Yeah.
It all
so when this goes in the engine, it's going to look like it was. Probably better than it
from
was.
Mr. Kawasaki.
Yeah, from Mr. Kawasaki. Yeah.
That's good to see. So that's great. So is that now almost ready to go?
Well, I've just popped it on just before you got here, and you can see now we've got the dial gauge on there.
Yeah.
And it's
I see it moving.
about 10 thou, just over 10 thou out on the
yeah.
two. So what we need to do now
is get your special hammer out.
There's a bit of oil just dripping off it because it's.
Yeah, we now get to see the magic hammer. The magic hammer. Which will hopefully get it straight.
So basically, that's a piece of scrap.
Yes, that can go in the scrap bin.
Well,
it is.
Well, I'll let Les decide that.
Yeah. Okay, so you go and get your magic hammer and your foam.
Let's slide them there.
Yeah, put my bit somewhere else.
What we'll do.
Yeah.
See what happens on here.
Get your magic foam and your magic hammer.
Well, it's not that. When I've been hitting it with the copper, you get a little copper fragment.
I know.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
No, it just sinks in, doesn't it?
So what we have to do now is we put that on there, and with our
special magic hammer,
big, is it a 2 pounder? Oh, 3 pounder.
Yeah.
Or is it 3? No, what?
That seems to be something like that. How long's that?
Eh?
Could do with a bit of a refresh, that one.
Well, I'll have to get
so now you're going to take that off there, stick it on your.
So what we need to do is
mark it.
Where
is it?
Right, when the dial gauge goes clockwise, it goes high.
Right.
So
it's about there.
So it's going back to that way. So actually, that web wants knocking that way.
Okay.
So if I move the dial gauge that way,
yeah.
Lift that, which they're getting bloody heavy.
Oh, they are. Oh, we're getting old. 1 at 2.
Like that.
Yeah. Let me zoom in a bit. So I've got a bit closer.
Yeah.
So you got your magic hammer, you got your magic.
So basically,
foam.
what we want to do is try and hit it at somewhere around 90 degrees from the crank pin to there.
Right.
So I know it looks brutal.
Sometimes you have to be.
I'm just putting my rest in my hand on it because I don't want it jumping off. No, it'll do it quite easy. And if I go
right
like that,
yes.
If you move the camera
put it back on the gauge, and we'll see what's
this could take you half an hour.
Okay.
To true up.
Well, I'm here.
Yep, that's touching. And if we spin that now.
Yeah, not much different, I don't think.
No, it's not really.
Not done much there.
It's not done. You see, the thing is, we're now you have to hit it a bit harder.
Touch higher, yes.
This is where you get the feel.
A bit of craftsmanship.
You'll never. I mean, if you can do that right first time,
you're
very lucky.
Yes. All right. So take it off and do it all again. So here's the second attempt. Here we go.
Well,
that's a bit heavier than last time. And let's see what that's done. That's good enough, Jeff. Come on.
Oh, it flicked then. See, sometimes you've only got to get a tiny.
Have you got a bit of muck on it?
Sometimes what's better is if you put some oil, on the.
Just clean it, yeah.
If it's dry, it can snag.
Yes.
When you stop.
Yeah.
But if you just put a bit of oil on.
Let's have a look. That's pretty damn good.
That.
From here, I can't even see it moving.
No, but let's just check something. Yeah, so the gauge, when I just wobble it so it is touching.
Right, good, success.
So that
is done.
Is
happy days.
With that oil on there now, it's not dry.
It's not snagging.
Any sticking.
Yeah, any slight muck on it.
It doesn't throw that tiny little vibration through it.
Right,
yeah.
Excellent. Right, so we'll.
Oh, that's perfect. In fact, you know something? Yeah.
Happy days.
I do not think you could get that any better than that.
Okay, well done.
I've got to do the other side now.
Oh well, I won't film that.
Well,
it's almost tea time, believe it or not. It's 5 to 3 and 3 o'clock is tea time.
So that one's done.
Right, good. Okay, so Jeff, any tips for somebody in the future who might be doing that? If one day they're going to try and straighten up a crank from a Kawasaki Zed or any such crank?
When you say tips,
use a copper hammer. Don't use a ball peen hammer.
Absolutely, copper hammer.
Yes. You've got your stand there, of course. You've made a stand for the crank.
All it is 2 V-blocks.
Yes.
And obviously you can build the centre up. You press them on, adjust these to just pick up off your 2.
Oh, okay. So you basically
so you dial them up.
Right, and then you can move it out.
Yeah, and then you press them on. True, obviously you've got your points to get
your dating points
out. Yeah.
Yes.
I have had my bar through it all, and it all fits perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got a straight lineage bar or ground bar that will go all the way through all of them to make sure.
Show you now.
Okay.
We should be able.
So we know that is a very, very straight bar.
Yeah, it's been machined. Yeah,
it's been machined.
So,
and you can get them all lined up. And this is how you know your conrods are straight.
This is how you know everything's
aligned. There we go.
There you go.
So you know the conrods aren't bent or twisted.
They're all
in line.
Now, plus all your phasing and everything has got to be
excellent.
On.
Right, good.
To within
within that half a thou, whatever. Yeah.
It's not going to cause any problem. I mean, if that had gone in there and you couldn't spin that in there,
you know you've got a slight issue.
You've got some problems, yeah.
Okay, so that's a success.
So, well, I've just got to true that one up.
Okay, yeah, I won't film that, but it's the same process. It's the same process.
We just got.
And so that crank's almost done. The crank that's over there is for the spares bike. Is done, but still we're not finished with cranks yet. Because now we're now going to have a quick break for a cup of tea because it's tea time and a biscuit, and then we're going to open a big box that arrived yesterday
of yours
with my second crank in it. Because this, or actually the third crank I've got for the Mark II, and that's what's next. Right. So with that crank sorted out, we now move on to yet another crank because this video's about cranks.
Yeah.
And we're just unboxing the second crank that I bought for my Mark II 400cc.
This is a Mark II one, yeah?
It is a Mark II, thank God. It's from the same place, from D&K, the big UK importers of such things. They bring a lot of gear in from America. I think that one was about £100, I think, something like that.
100 it was
110. Yeah, 110, that's right.
Well, with the postage, it was a tenner postage, yeah.
Yeah. So, what we're going to do now is, we need to work out at some point, hang on, how good it is, if it's worth keeping as is, if it's worth stripping down and just taking one conrod from it and using it in the other crank that came out of the original engine.
Well, let's see, that seems.
Let's have a look.
A bit of.
Yeah.
They look all right in the little ends.
Okay, just checking.
That's
the small
a new
ends.
gudgeon pin, and
yes.
It seems to.
Feels okay.
To be nice, yeah.
That's always a good start.
There's nothing serious. You can see in them, and they're clean. There's no serious, nothing
amiss
in them.
Okay, that's a good sign. Hopefully the bottom end will be just as good. And if it is, we can use that crank in the engine rather than having to.
I mean, without stripping it,
which we'll do.
It looks, it's covered in oil. I think they probably pulled an engine apart.
That's also a good sign. It's not been sat around in a damp garage going rusty for years and years.
Yeah, that one's.
Yeah.
I mean, they put them things on there to stop. You can actually take them off and.
Yeah, the end.
Oh, they cut. Yeah, I mean, at quick glance, I pull some apart and instantly you see all pit marks and.
Yes, and they're okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, without going any further, without.
Okay, so anyway. So what will happen in the next week or so when you've got time is going to strip that down, check it all out.
Well, I can start that tomorrow.
Start tomorrow, yeah, and hopefully
we'll get it all in bits.
Get it all bits, check it all out.
Check them out, and then I can build this back up the centre,
weld it up, and so on.
And then you can get that.
We'll get them welded up, yeah, and then it can go to Les at last, and you can continue, or at least start building up the engine, which we've got the cases and the block and the covers all already powder coated and checked over. Mind you, he's really busy now, isn't he? So it might be a while before he can start that engine, but never mind, never mind. The plan has always been to get that bike finished by my birthday in January, so we've still got about, what, 5 months to go? And hopefully it won't have as many problems as my Z1170 project, which has been a nightmare from start to finish. Right, okay, we span the crank round, and you're saying the end taper's in good nick, unlike those other cranks we've seen so far today.
Yeah.
It's in very good condition, which kind of implies the whole crank is in good condition overall.
That's come out of an engine.
Yes, a good engine.
A good engine.
Yeah, that's from some place in America.
Yeah.
No doubt. Good, that's good, that's good. Now the other crank.
I mean, obviously, apart from a strip down, well, it wants welding anyway.
Yes.
So it wants
stripping down anyway. Yeah.
Stripping down.
But the other crank we've got that I bought, that happens to have the smaller original earlier crank and con rods and so on.
Z9 or
yes.
Could be.
We can rebuild that. Rebuild it. And no. And I've got another engine at home in bits that we can use that on.
Right.
I've not got a bike yet, but at least I'll have an engine.
Oh, right.
But that's for a different day. That's for sort of 2023 or something. No, I don't want that, no. Right, good. That's good news then.
Well, Matt, I could do the feedback on that now, saying great, yeah.
Yeah, good, excellent. Well, yeah, as I say, some D&K and they're usually pretty damn good.
Usually, they've been, you know, they're very good. So, I don't think they're going to be, it won't have a problem with that. They all seem nice and smooth. There's no play. And it looks as though it's got bags of oil on it, so, you know.
No rust, hopefully. Right, excellent. So I think that is the end of our video about cranks. We've done lots and lots of videos about.
No one's been beating it with a
ball-peen hammer. That's always a big thumbs up from me. Yeah.
What I'll do with it all is strip it and get some 400s or whatever, and I'll polish all the webs up so they're all nice and clean and
ready to rock.
You know, check everything out. Right,
good. So that's good news, and I think that brings us to the end of your video, our video about cranks. We've done a lot of time on cranks at the moment.
God.
But there you go. And in fact, now I've got my cup of tea to finish off. And we're going to do a bit more work on something for me, which is about something completely different. So we'll end this video here. So thanks for watching and cheers.